Welcome to Grace Baptist Church Podcast, where together we are growing in grace and the knowledge of Christ. We don't know all the answers, but we know the one who does. Let's go live to the Grace Baptist Studio in Winchester, Kentucky, with your host, Kurt Corcoran.
Welcome to the Grace Baptist Church Podcast, Growing in Grace, episode 17. This is the first episode of 2023. It feels weird to say that, but we are back, and we're going to come back regularly and weekly. So we took a little break, of course, because of the holidays and the hustles and bustle of everything, but we are back weekly, and I have somebody new. I'm privileged to have somebody new on the mic here next to me, Mr. Grant Burkett, Berkey, aka, what do they
Just
call you?
Hoss,
really, the Mountain.
The Mountain.
No.
I'm pulling some gamer tags here.
Yeah, right. Grant, how you doing, man?
Doing all right, man.
Yeah, awesome. Good to have you on, and thank you for being here.
Yeah, we've talked about this for a while with me coming on. It's finally here, first episode of 2023, like you said, so hopefully we started off right.
That's right, yeah. Need to throw a guest in here, and I think the only guests that have been on here besides staff has been Bryce and Elizabeth, so you should feel honored and privileged, right?
Absolutely.
No. So Grant is saved and single, ladies. So just keep that in mind. 24 years old. What's your eye color?
I think it changes, honestly. I think it's like green and blue, yeah.
It's whatever the girl wants it to be right now.
It's whatever is in your mind, I guess. Right there.
Awesome. Hey, so before we get into things, the topic is going to kind of be this, is why is grace a great place to plant your roots, right? Because here you are, Grant, a 24-year-old in the workplace, serving in the student ministry, helping me run the youth socials, taking pictures of the youth, taking pictures of church events when it arises, and you're going to a life group. You're also going to services, church services. You're heavily involved. And I don't feel like you're burnt out. Do you feel like you're burnt out?
I do not feel like I'm burnt out at all.
Yeah. So, and
which
and
we'll
that's
get into
rare.
that
Yeah, exactly. And so that's rare. So here you are, a 24-year-old guy, and we'll kind of get into this. Actually, no, just let's get into it now. You're working an hour away from Winchester, and I remember praying with you through that decision, but you actually used to work in Winchester, literally 10 minutes from the church.
10 minutes from the church, across the street from my place. It was pretty nice, and now it's an hour. It's like way different.
And some people would say, well, if I'm gonna move my job there, then I'm just gonna move there, so it's more convenient. But obviously not only family is in Winchester, but also a big pulling factor for you was Grace is in Winchester, and you wanted to be a part of that ministry, and you obviously love Grace for many different reasons, and we'll get into that. But share with us a little bit about Grant, testimony. Those who do not know you, tell us, Grant. Start wherever you want in your timeline.
Are we going like personal, just church related? Like which way are we going?
Spiritual. Yeah.
All right.
Spiritual, personal.
Well, I have always went to church ever since I can remember. I grew up in church, and I'm very blessed to say that my family, for the most part, goes to church. Immediate and non-immediate family. Always remember going to church, vacation Bible schools, church functions, whether it's VBS, summer. Christmas plays, all that.
Were you in Christmas plays? Were you ever Joseph? Were you baby Jesus? Were you one of the angels?
I was in Christmas plays, but not a lead role because that's really not me.
Yeah.
And then it got to the point like I was doing like behind the scenes stuff, pictures, videos, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Or like running the screens, whatever. But yeah, so I always remember going to church ever since I was little. I'm saved, of course. I don't remember the exact age I was saved. I'm thinking it was around 7.
Yeah.
And then kind of really got more serious going into my teenage years. I guess just understanding more, being in youth more.
Yeah.
Like, just really understanding the gospel, daily struggles, daily life as a Christian, really got me more serious. And then just like most Christians, you always have your highs and lows, throughout the years. Always went through those now, but now that I'm at Grace, I feel like that I'm just on a high.
Yeah.
For multiple reasons. I've only went to one church my whole life. That's Southside Free Will Baptist Church in Paintsville, Kentucky, where I'm from.
So this is only your second
This is
church?
only my second church I've ever known as a home church. So it's kind of different, coming to Grace. My sister and brother-in-law started coming here when they moved here a little over a year ago. Always visited, on the weekends. Always came here and loved it. Didn't know who this Kurt guy was running around, this young guy. I thought he was pretty cool. Here I am sitting with him in the studio, and of course we've become great friends since then.
Now tell everybody who your sister and brother-in-law are, because a lot of people have just now figured this out, right? We went to Passion, and some people there just figured it out. And
so I'm terrible with names anyway, as we know in youth. I'm still asking youth kids names, and they're like, bro, like, you know me. Like, what? I was like, yeah. So my sister is Hannah Van Hoos. She's married to Matt Van Hoos. If you guys know him in the church or seen him, we sit on the kind of back left during Sunday.
Exactly. Dude,
morning.
You got it. That's in staff meeting when we're talking about like reaching out to people or whatever. Like, okay, where do they sit? Like, that's like
I think it's a Baptist thing.
That's like, you got to figure out like,
thing.
okay, well, they sit back in there, it's those people, remember them?
Yeah. The McLarens were went with us to Passion.
Yeah.
And by the way, Passion was awesome. If you've never been, you should definitely go.
Yeah.
1825 though.
Yeah.
And but yeah, so the McLarens went to Brandon and Courtney. They had no idea who I was really. They know my sister and Matt, and they kind of put it together before we went, and then we became friends, and we really spent a lot of time, and it was great at Passion together.
Yeah. So there's a lot of people that don't know Grant yet.
I kind of feel indifferent about that. I feel like they don't know me personally, but I had one guy come up, don't know his name, a couple weeks ago, and he was like, hey, you take pictures, right? I was like, yeah, that's me. And he's like, I need you to take some pictures next Sunday for us. I was like, all right, great. Still don't know his name, but I'm sure he's listening.
Yeah. What does he need you to take pictures of?
It was for an event Sunday morning.
Was it for baptism?
The CR maybe?
Oh, yeah.
CR?
CR.
Yeah.
Yeah, the cardboard testimonies. That's
yes,
right.
That's it.
That's awesome. Yeah. So you coming to Grace, and you said you only been to one other church. So what brought you to Winchester? What relocated you?
Yeah, so the relocation came from my career with Enterprise. Brought me here to Winchester. It was a promotion to the branch here in Winchester, like we talked about in the beginning. And since that promotion, I've been promoted again to Shelbyville, but still live here in Winchester. That was a big part, like you said, about the relocation. Should I take the job? Should I not take the job? I really feel like I'm meant to be at this church at this time, and I told you that. That was part of the prayer, that we did there for a little bit. And I feel like I've just been more connected at this church in the last almost year since I've been here than I was in the last 5 years at my home church.
Yeah.
I think that's a part of spiritual growing, though. I think
yeah.
I was meant to go through that, as many people are meant to go through that and do go through that. Some people take it different, though. I feel like some people just fall out of church when that happens, though, because they're not growing. They don't know what to do. They don't know what steps to go to, so they quit going. I feel like a lot of young people do that, too, especially on their transition from teens to youth to, like, now I'm on my own. I'm in college. Like, do I fall out? Not really growing or whatever. But I would say that I'm blessed that I felt that way and that I did come through it. And now here I am at Grace. Like you said, I'm part of the youth team. I do pictures, VBS, help here, help there. You text or call and be like, hey, man, I need help with the church for this. Like, I'm there, So I just feel really blessed that I'm here.
VBS. Oh, gosh, man.
There's some stories. That was a wild VBS. I'm used to, like, So that's one thing with only being at one other church. Like I compare everything to my old church naturally, right?
Yeah.
This VBS was awesome though.
Yeah.
It was just different.
Besides trying to bend PVC pipe with a heat gun.
We successfully did it.
We did,
It just
but it looked
didn't
terrible.
look as good as we thought it was going to look.
I'm still scarred from that experience, but that's okay. You know, you learn.
Yeah.
You learn stage design and what not to do. Yeah. But so kind of talk like why grace? Like, cause for some people, they would think, you know, well, I don't like this about this church. I don't like this about this church, but you have the mindset of, hey, I'm not here just to consume, but I'm here to, glorify God. I'm here to serve. And I think that's why, maybe you feel so anchored here is because you're actually serving Christ with your gifts, you know, that he's given you. But to somebody who's maybe on the fence, kind of speak to that.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was going to hit on, was your spiritual gifts, because a lot of people say I don't have a spiritual gift, but the Bible says otherwise. Mm-hmm. Everybody's got a spiritual gift. You may not know what it is yet, and if you don't, I encourage you to pray about it, and so that you do figure it out, because that's how we're really going to serve, you know, and be that outreach to the people that need it. But I mean, you can also serve with your spiritual gift to other Christians inside of your church, right?
Yeah.
You know, we do it all the time. We don't even realize it. But this church, it's about double the size of the church I come from. So there's more options to plug in, which is a good thing. But I feel like there's so many that like you kind of have to pick and choose, because you can't be everywhere all the time. Especially, you know, if you're not on staff here, if you don't work here, like you've got to go different routes and avenues that fit your schedule the best, but you're still serving God and you're not pushing church to the side.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So that's always something that a lot of people can't. They don't want to go to a church of like this size. This isn't even what I would call a big church. You know?
Yeah.
But some people just can't dictate what's good, you know, for them or whatever. So they just kind of fall out, or they are on the fence, like you said. But I feel like this church is just a good place to plug in, because you have the youth ministry, you have the kids ministry, the bus ministry, you know, the greasers in the morning, the lawn care team. My church didn't have a lawn care team, because it wasn't as big. So there's always something.
Dude, and I'll tell you what, some of those guys, I mean, they look forward to coming out here and cutting the grass. Like if they get called
sweat hard and work hard though.
Man, there is something soothing about getting on a zero turn though on this property back here and just cruising on the backfield, just popping in a podcast, or popping in, you know, some music, and just, I mean, I've spent so many days out here during the summer just praying, you know, on that zero turn. It's cool because we have so much property here, and you get on that zero turn. It's fun. So, and a lot of the guys like it. But yeah, like you said, there's so many different opportunities.
Yeah, there's always activities and stuff going on too that you can always plug in. Like the Grace gatherings. I love those Grace gatherings. Like we got together, especially Baptists, right? Because Baptists always get together and eat, right? I mean, Pat talks about it all the time. My old pastor talked about it all the time. But there's always, when you step into this church for whatever, if it's a Grace gathering or if it's a Sunday worship, whatever it is, you're always going to get fed the gospel. Yeah. Whether it's
fed physically and spiritually.
Literally. But I mean, even like, you know, the Grace gathering, say it's just get together and eat, right? You know, whether it's you pray before we do eat, or Pat or whoever, you guys have always got 30 seconds to 60 seconds or even more of that gospel teaching and preaching, and then it's like, hey, let's pray and eat, right?
Yeah.
It's never forgotten. Like you always get filled, literally and figuratively, and spirit led and filled when you walk in and you're walking out. Like you're always thinking about it, and that's one good thing about this church. I've been to a lot of other churches, of course, not I would call my home church. Yeah. But that's just not there. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's hard to find, and I think some people just think like, well, I'll just go to this church or that church because it's closer to my work, or it's you know, it's more convenient. But to really find a church, and not saying that Grace Baptist Church is the only church that preaches the gospel. There's lots of churches out there that preach the gospel. I'm thankful for that. But actually finding one that's rooted in Scripture and that teaches the Bible and teaches the truth and doesn't back down from that, you know. And that's what I love being a part of Grace, is that we're a church that does that, you know.
Yeah, and I know a few moments ago you mentioned something about, you know, well, if you don't like something about this church, like you're not going to find, I think if you look hard enough, you're going to find something you don't like about every single church, because we're all human. We're all not the same person, right? But like what you got to look at is, one, is it biblical?
Yep.
Two, is it against any morals or anything in the Bible?
Yeah.
If it's no, then maybe it's just a preference, and like you can get through that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whether it's lights or music or how long somebody preaches. I've heard that one before, and it's like, what? Like if it's spirit led, what's it matter if it's 30 minutes or an hour? Like it's still the same thing, right?
Ouch. Yeah.
So I mean, those are some things to look out for. If you can just, I think it all starts with your heart and you know what you're there for and your purpose, which is, you know, I hope to all serve the Lord. If you can find something you can get plugged into at the church, whether it's just something little, it gives you more of a purpose.
Yeah.
And then I think everything starts just snowballing effect and rolling for you to get more plugged in, more connected, to learn more, be more spirit-led and filled.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, because literally you have skin in the game. I mean, you're putting yourself in a part of the church, and kind of going back to what you said, you know, all those things about if somebody doesn't like something. I think of Passion, like that's the first time that I've got to experience like worship to that level of like, I don't know what you'd call it, I guess.
There was a couple of times I saw on your face, you were like,
yeah, it was a lot, man. Like, but it was cool, you know. But I'm just not used to that. And that's not for
everybody, but you know, that's okay, because you didn't walk out there being like, man, I didn't like the music. Yeah. I'm never coming back. Yeah. Like that would be silly, you know. Yeah. So some people are like that though. Yeah. Like, but then I feel like those type people aren't probably in it for the right reason, right?
Bingo.
That's tough.
But seriously, I mean, like if you're going to church and you're like, oh my gosh, and this is like a pet peeve of mine. I don't know why, it just really irks me, but they're like, oh my gosh, I just didn't like that music. I just couldn't connect with that music. First off, going back to your points, is it biblical? And I mean, I've read the lyrics on the screens that we're singing these songs at Grace. They're all biblical. Like it's pointing back to Jesus. Like, and if there's something that's not biblical, we'll have that conversation, obviously. And I know BJ well enough to know his heart and to know the process that he goes through about picking out songs and looking at you know, the doctrine in them. So if it's a different beat, like, I'm sorry, get over yourself. It's not like and this is the biggest thing. Worship is not about you. It's about God.
Oh, exactly. Ooh, man, we got some.
I mean, that's a reality, right? So I don't know.
Yeah, there was a couple times during Passion, and I know some churches around the area. I wouldn't say area. I guess the state, I guess, would be a better word for it. But, you know, at Passion, they were kind of jumping around on stage, you know, getting into it. They were worshiping God. Yeah. Like, if that's, I mean, kind of looks silly. Oh, yeah. You could say at times it was a little much or whatever. Yeah. But, you know, if that's how they were feeling to worship God, like, we shouldn't knock it, right?
Yeah. I mean, it talks about, you know, in
was it
Scripture.
Paul or Peter who was dancing in the streets, right?
Yeah.
Like, they were doing it. It's biblical, so you can't say anything, like, you can't say that's wrong or it's a sin or whatever, because it's not. Like, we can look it up in the Bible, you know? Yeah. So I think it's pretty cool. Yeah. How things are adapting and changing, but, like, it's still biblical.
Yeah, absolutely. But, so for you, what would you say to like the young adults, like, because like nobody's waking you up in the morning. I mean, you're a single dude right now. You are living on your own. You're waking up on Sunday mornings. You're getting here and you're coming and being a part of Grace. What would you say to the young adults who maybe are wavering in that or don't really feel the need to come to church?
I would say that it's tough.
Yeah,
it gets tough. But I think if you're really saved and you know you're supposed to have a personal relationship with God and that it's going to get better at some point. Yeah. I mean, I'm fine. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
But, like, for those people, you know, it's like, I just don't really want to. Like, I'd just rather stay home. 1, 2, 3, ABC, whatever the excuses are, right? You know, line them up. Yeah. Like, push that to the side. put your clothes on, come to church, get plugged in, come see me or Kurt, have a conversation before church, we'll ask you to go out to dinner, whatever, lunch after.
Accountability, right?
Yeah.
I think it's funny when I always come up to you like, dude, where were you for like life group or something? And you're like, dude, I was here. It's
I was just in another one downstairs.
It's just like a running joke now.
But I think it's just a mindset, and then really having like just the willpower. I mean, wanting to get closer to God. And maybe it's just changing a little something in yourself.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just starting something in the mornings that you're going to start praying every morning. And then that turns into, hey, it is Sunday. I'm going to go to church this Sunday, right?
Yeah.
Or I'm going to go to youth this Wednesday, or whatever that may look like. But I think it's just all in your heart, setting a mindset and then sticking to it.
Yeah. Yeah, and finding that community, right? I mean, obviously you have that community within the student ministry. You have that community, obviously, within your sister and your brother-in-law, but also you've even kind of connected with some older guys in the church, which has been really cool too. Yeah. Did you know that there's actually a study out that if a teen, and you're not really a teen, but you once were,
I think I am to a lot of still, though. It's like, how old are you? It's like, oh, I'm almost 25. Oh, well, you're still 14 in my eyes, right? Like,
but there's a study done that said that if a teenager has 2 to 3 men, or if it's a girl, women in their lives that are influential outside of the student ministry, like outside of like the leaders, like so for you, it would be Mark Miller, right?
Yeah.
That would be one of your guys, and maybe a couple other. But 2 to 3 relationships, like outside of the student ministry and outside of their parents, that will keep them kind of accountable or kind of keep them rooted, that they'll never fall away from the church. Like 2 to 3 foundational relationships outside of the student ministry, outside of your parents in the church.
I would say that that's true for me.
Yeah, I would say too.
Because I've thought about that sometimes too. In my old church, like going through something, whether it's a relationship or work or whatever, like I always had 3, 4, 5 guys in my mind that I knew I could call, text, meet after church, go up to before church and ask questions or whatever, and they're there for me. Yeah. A lot of people don't have that.
Yeah, that's big.
Yeah, it is big. But yeah, I believe that's a statistic. Absolutely.
Yeah. Ooh, you just said that a lot of people don't have that.
Come to grace and you can have that.
Yeah, right. But in reality, I love grace and I love the community here. And I'm glad that God brought you here,
I'm glad to be here. I was kind of feeling down in my old church, honestly. I know we said a little bit about that here in the beginning. But I feel like I come from small town, which you do too.
Yep.
Population of my church was probably 150 to 200.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, we had a lot more youth there, but there's nothing in my small town in Paintsville, so everybody moves away.
Yeah.
So once everybody got to 18, 19, going to college in my age group, there's really nobody there and nobody backfilling the youth. Like there's no more youth because there just wasn't as many kids. I feel like, but with that being said, I was kind of down, not really in my faith, but like, is this the right church for me now? Because I feel like there's nothing here for me.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of churches that's been closing their doors since COVID. A lot of people stopped going to church since COVID. A lot of things have changed in church since COVID.
Yep.
And I feel like my church was really affected by that. And I feel like that my church was like one of the bigger churches in the area. And to see that happening, and they're still going through it right now with the pastor change. But to see that happening is very like disheartening.
Yeah.
And for anybody who is a member there, or always went, whatever that looks like, it's very disheartening.
Yeah.
And it's like, do I still have a purpose in this church, right? In this specific church, not church in general.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But some people had that thought too. Like,
Oh yeah.
Do I even need to go to church? You know what
there's
I mean?
a lot of different people out there.
Coming from that, praying about it, with my job, and then getting landed here, and then taking another promotion an hour away and being like, you know what, I don't want to move because I feel like God's placed me in this church for a reason.
Yeah.
One reason being the youth. I love working with those kids.
Yeah.
Doing the small group.
Yep.
with the junior high boys. I love that. And it's like, I want to take this promotion, but I want to stay at Grace because I want to grow and I want to be a witness for you. And that's one thing too. Like, I remember telling you about the job. If I'm not supposed to get the job, don't let me get it. If I do get the job, let me be a light and a witness while I'm there. Like, that's the only reason why I want it. Not because of money, not, nothing else, right?
Yeah.
And I've experienced that. I told you this week that I got to witness to a coworker. Like, that's, if that's the only person I witness to, it's worth to drive every hour to me, in the mornings and back for 6-8 months, however long that looks like. But it's having that mindset to stay rooted in a church and to grow in a church, because you can tell those stories like that. But ultimately, it's for him being a witness, for him getting more people into heaven. Let's make heaven crowded, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the point.
Yeah, that's the goal. Absolutely. Well, it's been a good conversation, Grant, and I thank you for coming on, man. Is there any last tidbits that you want to share? Anything?
I don't think so.
Awesome. Cool. Well, hey, thanks for being on here, man. And we're going to try and get more people on the podcast, more guests, kind of get, like I said, this is kind of behind the scenes look at Grace, right? And figuring out and meeting some people. So Grant, he sits in the back left if you're looking at the stage. If you're walking into, that's where he's at. So you can scope him out there.
Is that technically stage right, though?
It's stage right if you're on the stage. It's stage left
right,
if you're
looking
yeah,
at the
it's
stage.
confusing. But yeah,
Like that.
yeah. Hey, thank you guys for listening. Make sure to share this on your socials. Get the word out. Make sure that you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. Subscribe to Apple Podcast if that's where you listen. Spotify, those types of things. We'll see you guys on the next one.